Good morning. Nice to see all of you folks. This is as unusual for me as it is for you to have this recorded, and so we're going to do the best we possibly can this morning. This is Management 400, a core management or core course at the Air Force Academy, which means everybody takes it. This is for non-engineering majors and non-management majors. I want you to understand I am a practitioner. I have done all of these things. I'm not a theoretician, but when I came back and started teaching in the management department, what I found out is the practices that I had developed over the course of a career were right there in the theory. And I wish I had known a lot and carried more of that theory with me and been more current on the theory when I got out there and started doing the work. What I would say is today, when I come over to talk at the Air Force Academy, I ask myself two questions. Number one is, what do I wish I had known when I graduated from this place? And I bring that to you. And the other question is, how can I get through this hour without embarrassing cadets that we know? And word getting back to them that, yeah, in Evan's case, your grandfather is doing a bad job at the Air Force Academy. So here we go. I'll start though with a little bit of theory. 4 functions of management. In this course, you're now taking one course in what, about a 3-week period. And you're 2-day veterans, is that right? So, 4 functions of management. You're in charge. You've just taken over an organization. We're going to use gerunds. Where's my English major? A gerund is what? You take you take a verb and you add ing, and you make it into what? A gerund. No, you make it into a noun, right? Ski-ing. Everybody with me? Okay, so 4 functions of management. You're in charge. This is your job. First, we start off with the P word. What might that be? Planning. Planning. Who are we? Why do we exist? Where are we going? Those kinds of things. Second one is the O word, which would be organizing. How am I going to take my good people, my human resources, my physical resources, my money, my technology to help us get, how am I going to organize all that to get us where we're going to get to? Third one is leading. How am I going to influence you good people to accomplish these organizational objectives? And the last one everybody hates. Controlling. It's not a 4-letter word. You got it. Controlling. How are we doing? My target's over here and my hits are all over here. What am I going to do? I'm either going to change my way of doing business or move the target, etc., etc., etc. What are we here to talk about today? Which of these 4? You get a hint from the top of the little outline there. Today's topic is what? Leadership. Leadership. We're talking about leading. A lot of management consultants have earned a whole lot of money going around the country saying things like, we don't want managers, we want leaders. Exactly. Which in technical terms is garbage. Leading is critical, but it's not, it's essential, but it's not the be-all and end-all. All the leadership in the world without planning and organizing and controlling is like a rocket with a jillion pounds of thrust and no guidance. Everybody with me on this? So we're talking about and we're focused on leadership today, how to do and what to do, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It's just one of the 4 up here. Okay. Let's go to page 1 on your outline. I retired at the ripe old age of 52. I mean fully. I was an executive with Atlantic Richfield Corporation out on the left coast. Anybody know what an ARCO is out there? Anyway, British Petroleum bought us. And Debbie and I'd read an article that said the chances of a long-term married couple both being hale, hearty, continent, competent, whatever, at age 70 was 50-50. So we started planning on early retirement. We educated our two daughters, we educated a son-in-law, we got all that, got them started in life, and we're ready to retire. British Petroleum bought Atlantic Richfield Company, came to me. Early retirement from ARCO was age 55. They came and said, we've bought you folks, we now have 2 of everything, we know our people better, so how about if we let you retire 3 years early, make you 55 3 years early, and bring you a wheelbarrow full of money to ease the pain. So I said, throw me in that briar patch. And that's when we moved back here to Colorado. I have a friend in Atlanta, Georgia. Everybody should be fortunate enough to have a friend like this. Every now and then my phone rings. And my friend in Atlanta, who's in the aviation consulting business, calls and he says, Carl, I've got another one. And I know what he's talking about. Somewhere a corporate flight department is in a ditch. Corporate meaning large, very large companies or very high net worth individuals. Ditch meaning something has gone dramatically wrong. By the time my phone rings, whoever's been running that flight department has either been fired or is back flying airplanes, fixing airplanes, or whatever they were doing before they took over the flight department. Something has gone boom, either figuratively or literally, before my phone rings. My phone has rung 6 times, and these are corporations that you would recognize their names and or very high net worth individuals. So Pete says, we got an issue, we got a flight department that needs help. My phone rings, and my job is to go in and manage this flight department long enough to get it out of the ditch, assess the people who work there to see if anybody's ready to step up and take over the organization. In other words, fix the critical things, change the culture in the organization. So I'm now in charge. So yeah, I'm a consultant, but you'll find out it's a little broader than that. So here's how we get started. Typically, Pete will make an arrangement for us to meet with senior management of the corporation. We fly somewhere, wherever the city is that has this flight department. He and I meet over dinner. Meanwhile, before all of this, I've done all my homework. You think your homework may be over when you graduate? No. So I've done my homework on this organization. So we meet and we chat, and then the next morning I'm sitting in an office of a very senior person in the corporation who is responsible for a whole lot of things, one of which is aviation. And typically they don't have an aviation background. This is an executive vice president or somebody like that. And they care about aviation. Aviation is hugely important to them because they fly their key management team around. They fly their key customers around. I mean, it's huge. It has a safety-sensitive role. It has an image-sensitive role, customer relations, all of those kinds of things. And something's gone wrong, again, before my phone rings. So we sit down, we have a little interview. And if I pass muster at this interview, which I have 6 out of 6 times, then we go out and fill out some paperwork, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And they talk to their administrative person and says, please get a hold of the flight department and call a meeting for 1 o'clock this afternoon, all hands meeting. And that's when your phone rings. So while you're sitting here for today, imagine yourself as a member of the XYZ Corporation Flight Department. Fair enough? And if you want to fly them, you can fly them. If you want to be a flight doc, you can be a flight doc or dentist. If you want to fix them, if you want to schedule them, whatever it is you want to crew, put that in your head. But for the rest of today, we're talking about me coming in to run the organization and you in the organization. Fair enough? So your phone rings. You don't know what this is all about. You know we've had some difficulties. And you're called into the hangar. Let's say there are 50 some of you, and you're sitting in folding chairs, and the door opens, and in walks this executive vice president whom you know, and me, whom you don't. And the executive vice president stands up and says something like, as you know, we've had some difficulties. And you're thinking, duh. And we've brought in Carl Janssen. Carl Janssen is now in charge of the flight department. He has a lot of experience in this area, and we think he'll do you a wonderful job, do us a wonderful job. And I would appreciate it if you would give your full support to Carl in this role. And then he leaves. And that's what constitutes a change of command ceremony in the world. So I'm standing here. You've never seen me. I've never seen you. I've never been in this building before. I don't know where my office is. And I'm in charge. And when I say in charge, I am in charge. The paperwork we filled out in the morning gives me full operational, financial, and people authority over this outfit. I'm in charge. So, think about this. I'm brand new, haven't been here before, and I'm now in charge. How many of you think something like this might happen to you in the next few years? Every single one of you. So what we're going to talk about today is the good stuff. And please understand, I've earned all of these gray hairs. So I'm imparting what I do, how I do it, etc., when I take over an organization. Fair enough? Okay, so I'm standing in front of you. This is where it starts. And I realize that there's a heavy meter running on this meeting because you've all got work to do. So I'm going to be brief. And I'm going to ask you for about 3 things. I'm going to ask you for your professionalism. I need you to keep on doing your job. I'm not here to take your job away from you. In fact, I'll tell you more about what my role is when we meet individually. But I need you to keep on keeping on doing a great job of your job. And then secondly, I need your patience and your trust. You don't know me from second base. I've known me a long time. I'm a good guy. So please give me the benefit of the doubt. Keep on doing your job, and we're going to get along just fine. And then thirdly, in short order, I'm going to need some of your time. Each of you, we're going to schedule a meeting, each of you with me, and we're going to get acquainted. It's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not going to start at the top of the organization chart and work my way down. I'm not going to start with the pilots and work my way to maintenance. It's going to be helter-skelter based on your availability. Oftentimes these flight departments are 24-hour, 365-day-a-year operations. So I'm going to be in there at 2 o'clock in the morning because that's when you come to work. But I'm in short order, and if you're not here physically, we're going to do it over video conferencing or ever how we can do it. But we are going to meet, and we're going to chat, and we're going to get to know each other, get acquainted. And in preparation for that, I need you to be able to answer my 3 questions. And this is the only homework for that meeting. And at this point, I tell you what those questions are. Fair enough? Okay, scene shifts. We're now in my office, which I've been shown where it is. We're in my office, and you're sitting in a comfortable chair. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I'm taking notes. And I explained to you that I'm going to take notes during this session for a couple of reasons. One is, there are a bunch of you. And the other is, I'm a visual learner. So this is how I capture things. And I want you comfortable with the fact that I'm taking notes. And I tell you that these notes are for my use only. No one will ever see these except me, and when I'm finished with my time here in this organization, they're going through the shredder. So again, trust me on this, and you'll understand why as we get toward the bottom of this. So I start off with my 3 questions. Remember, I told you these questions back in the hangar. And my 3 questions are very straightforward. Number 1, what do you do? This is a good icebreaker. Everybody likes to talk about what they do. So what do you do? And then question number 2, how do you know when it's done? And question number 3, how do you know how well you did? If I get good, crisp answers to these questions, then in theoretical terms, we have good job clarity around here. People know what their role is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have good feedback. If I get ba-duh, 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 I know we've got some issues. I learn a lot asking these 3 questions. Plus, it just gets the conversation going. And let me tell you, each of you is going to develop your own style of how you do these things. These are just things that work. And I'm just offering them up as part of a menu that you might use when the time comes. Worst case, when I ask my 3 questions in one of the organizations, let's say the manager who had been fired before I got there, let's say their name was John. I never met John, but I know John well because I know the impact John had on his people. I'd ask my questions. What do you do? I do whatever John tells me to do. How do you know when it's done? John tells me it's done or it's not done. How do you know how well you did? John yells at me or John, has anybody ever worked for John? Yeah. Don't be a John. And we'll get back to John in a little while. Then we just get to know each other. This is not an interview. So we can talk about things that would be either improper or perhaps illegal in an interview setting. We can talk about them in this setting, just getting to know each other. We can talk about what was your background before we got here? What are your hobbies? We talk about families, and it's a two-way street. I want you to get to know me as a person because my approach to this management stuff is we're all in this together. And if it's something that you and I need to talk about, I want you comfortable with me as a person, and let's talk. And this is how I begin to establish some of this kind of rapport. If you want to put a bracket around the next 2, they go hand in hand. Why we exist and what our standards are. Every organization I've ever been part of has been a small part of what? A bigger organization. And basically, we exist to support and meet the needs of the bigger organization. So all day, every day, we need to be focused on not how special we are because we fly VIPs around and we have wonderful airplanes out there and, you know, we're just neat. We need to be focused on meeting the needs of that bigger organization because ultimately, they could exist without us. We cannot exist without them. So that's what we focus on. That's why we exist. Our standards are the highest possible standards of everything that's good. Integrity, professionalism, care for each other, training and development of each other. Our standards, highest possible standards. You can fill in the blanks. But all day, every day, I want you to keep in mind why we exist and also what our standards are. To the extent that if somebody comes to you and says, Carl says do this, and if in your estimation it's not up to why, consistent with why we exist or up to our standards, don't do it, let's talk. Now some of what I'm going to say today is going to sound like heresy. Or you may be thinking, well, it might work in industry, but it ain't going to work in the Air Force. All I'll tell you is yes, every bit of this works in industry and every bit of it works in the Air Force. Don't do it, let's talk. When you work for me, I don't want just your hands and your feet. I want your head and your heart. I want you thinking about things. I want you caring about things. And if it's not up to your standards, it ain't going to be up to mine either. Let's talk about it. Any one of three things could be going on. One is maybe I didn't say anything and somebody's trying to use my authority to get you to do something. Stranger things have happened. Or maybe I said something, but by the time it got to you, it's been garbled, misunderstood, what have you. And I don't want you doing the wrong thing under those circumstances. Or third, and most likely, that's exactly what I said and exactly what I meant, and I'm wrong. Won't be the first time in my career. Your job is your job. I want you to take ownership of your job. I want you exercising your judgment and your heart and caring about this. And if it's not the right thing to do, don't do it. Let's talk. In theoretical terms, this is called what? Empowerment. And it works. My role in this organization is to see to it that each and every one of you has everything you need to do a marvelous job of your job. If you follow me around all day and say, what did Carl do for XYZ Corporation today? The answer is darn little. What did all of my good people do scattered all over the world today? The answer is huge. So when you get in a management position, oftentimes, or not oftentimes, the bulk of your work product is no longer your personal work product. It's the work product of whom? The good people that work for you. So my job is to make sure you're in a position to do a spectacular job of your job. And then the last one, if you want to put a star on this page, star this last bullet. I always end up with this. Remember, I'm taking notes. And this is a goal of mine. I get to the end of the conversation and we're sitting there chatting with each other. And I wrap up by asking the following question. If you had a magic wand and could wave it and change anything around here that's standing between you and you're doing a magnificent job of your job, or us as an organization and our doing a magnificent job of our job, what would you change? Can you imagine if somebody came to you and said, is there anything around here that you would change if you had a magic wand that's keeping you from being a better cadet at the Air Force Academy or us from being a better Air Force Academy? Do you think anything might come to mind? Oh, yeah. And people start talking and I keep on writing. Now remember, I've gotten information from my guy who's the consultant that brought me in. I've gotten information from the senior management of the organization. I've talked to legal, personnel, health, safety, environmental, FAA. I've talked to everybody about what's going on here. The best information that I get when I take over an organization is what I get as a result of that question. Because the people that know us best are whom? You good folks. And then that's the end of the session and you're thinking, well, let's see. 45 minutes to an hour, 50-some people in this case, sometimes more, sometimes less. That's a lot of time. And it is. And what I'll tell you is the best time I spend when I come in and take over an organization. And I would highly encourage you to think of some variation on this theme as a way to learn about your organization that you just took over and the good people that are in it. Page 3. This is what it feels like to work for me. If we disagree, you have what you think is a great idea. So you come down the hall and you make an impassioned presentation, and at the end of said presentation you think yes, and I think no. Who's in charge? Me. Whose no means no? Mine. So, shut up, go away. Yeah, not quite. We're still friends. We're still professionals. We still have mutual respect. But here's the deal. Go away, and you are pre-approved and encouraged to think about this. And if you're convinced you're right and I'm wrong, come back a second time. Try me again. Find a day when I've had better breakfast. Bring your friends and outnumber me. Cite a higher authority. You know, whatever. But come on back. And if at the end of that conversation we still don't agree, then the ball is in my court. There's a third step, and I will schedule a meeting with whoever's in a position of authority to help us resolve this issue. We'll go see the FAA, we'll go see my boss, we'll go see customer services, whatever it is. We're going to work we're going to work this out. Because, and this is the bottom line on this one, what's right is ever so much more important than who's right. And I don't want the fact that I'm at the top of the organization chart and you're not to ever keep good ideas bottled up in an organization just because I wasn't smart enough to smell the coffee. Who was my physics major? Okay, here we go. Closed system. Over time, you heat it, you heat it, you heat it, you heat it. Eventually, what's going to happen?
It'll be hot.
Eventually, closed system, eventually something's going to go boom, right? And I don't want any organization that I'm responsible for ever going boom. So this is one of the little pressure relief valves in there. I don't want anybody to sit there and say, well, my hands are tied. Or, well, this is stupid, or this is wasteful, but this is what we're told to do. This is what we're going to do. No. I don't want me standing between us and doing the right thing. Like I said, I've been wrong before. So let's keep at it until we get it worked out. I am the advocate of the full speed mistake. If we're not making mistakes around here, we're not accomplishing everything that we can be accomplishing. And you're thinking, well, what happened to that third core value for the Air Force, which is excellence in all we do? Am I being consistent with that? And my answer is yes. In my life experience, earning all these gray hairs, excellence is not perfection. Excellence is not perfect. If I demand perfection from you, we're going to do about 3 things a year around here. If I'm tolerant of full speed mistakes, in fact, I encourage full speed mistakes, we're going to do 300 things around here. And if you make a full speed mistake, and we learn enough from it, we'll probably throw a department party and you're the guest of honor. And we'll celebrate. Now, I'm not talking about malfeasance, criminal behavior, laziness, those kinds of things. That's not what I mean by full speed mistake. By full speed mistake, I mean you're doing the best you can to do the right thing, the right way, for the right reason, and it doesn't work out. Okay, fine. Let's keep going. I skipped over if I say something wrong, so we'll go back a bullet. If you ever hear me say something that you know is factually incorrect, correct me right now. I will never do that intentionally. Remember that integrity thing? Correct me right now. Now, please be professional and please be gentle or whatever else, but correct me. I would rather be embarrassed in front of somebody important than give out bad information. So, integrity first, That should ring a bell with you folks. And that's how we're going to operate around here. In my experience, there are 5 ways to do most anything. And this is an academic setting, so we'll call them A, B, C, D, and F. Okay? Everybody can relate? A is spectacular. I mean, it is just primo. We're going to be on the front page of the Air Force Times or the Wall Street Journal, or I mean, it's just amazing. B, C, and D are just variations on a theme. It's like ice cream, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. Yeah, they're different flavors, but it's all ice cream. And F is an abject failure. People are going to die, we're all going to jail. You know, it's terrible. If it's in your area of responsibility and a decision needs to be made, make it. A big part of my responsibility is developing you into the best you can be. And if you're coming up the hall to ask John all the questions, all the decisions, all of everything else, one of us is wasting our time. I want decisions made in this organization at the lowest level possible, because that's where the knowledge is. And that's how I develop you good folks. Now, if you need help, that's fine. But please understand, we don't have the time or the resources to be consistently seeking A. Every now and then we're going to stumble on A and we're going to throw another party. It's going to be wonderful, but it's an accident. B, C, and D are just ways to get the job done. And you might like B and I might like D, but who cares? Pick one and go with it. And we're collectively smart enough that we're going to avoid F. We're good professionals. I don't lose any sleep worrying about F. It's simply not going to happen in this organization. So pick one and go with it, and that's how we're going to do business. The Dalai Lama. I do not know the Dalai or Lama or whatever the right term is, but this was on the internet, so it has to be true, right? The Dalai Lama is purported to have said the following. And if you work for me and you want to put this on a banner on the wall of your office, be my guest. The Dalai Lama is supposed to have said, know the rules so you can break them well. Know the rules so you can break them well. And you're thinking, ooh, maybe in industry, not in the Air Force. A number of you want to go fly airplanes when you graduate from here. I was a pilot after grad school. And I'll tell you, every manual I ever read about operating Air Force airplanes started off with something, and I'll paraphrase, but it said something to this effect. It said, these are our rules and we expect you to follow them, comma, but. And I loved the comma, but, because it said, but the aircraft commander is ultimately responsible for the accomplishment of the mission and the safe conduct of the flight. In other words, what? Know the rules so you can break them well. If I had followed every rule that the Air Force has for flying their airplanes, I would be dead. Several times over. You can't write rules that are good enough to cover all circumstances today, much less in an uncertain future. Know the rules so you can break them well, and if you're doing your best to do the right thing, the right way, for the right reason, you're going to get nothing but support from me under these kind of circumstances. Suzuki says, in order to have well-behaved cattle, give them a large pasture. Woo! To have well-behaved cattle, give them a large pasture. How many of you feel like on a day-to-day basis, as you're functioning at the Air Force Academy, you're functioning in a large pasture? You know, you got rules, you got regulations, you got everything else. My strong recommendation to you folks is as you get out there in the world, back off on the rules, regulations, and what have you. Give your people some breathing room, elbow room, and they're going to flourish. Then if you want to star anything on this page, star the next to the last bullet. If you go through life underreacting, you will be beloved by the people who work for you and the people around you. Bad things are going to happen while you're in charge, both professionally and personally, by the way. Just that's life. I guarantee you bad things are going to happen. When bad things happen, I mean, that's a given. What's not a given is how you react when bad things happen. And if you react professionally, promptly, all of those kinds of things, but back off on the emotional content, again, you're going to be beloved. Our oldest daughter, Heidi, was in high school. She's out in the family car with her soccer teammate, Trish. And I get a call. And Heidi's crying. Dad. Yeah, Heidi. I've had an accident. Heidi, are you okay? Yes. Heidi, is Trish okay? Yes, but the car, Dad, the car. I said, Heidi, is anybody in the other vehicle hurt? No, Dad, they're okay, but the car. I said, Heidi, that car has two jobs. One is to protect you and Trish. And it sounds like it did a heck of a job of its job. And that's the primary job. The secondary job is to get us around. I said, now, where are you and how can I help? Sometimes you just do the right thing. This was the right thing. This was not the time to hammer Heidi. Let's say John's daughter's out in the automobile and has this same wreck. Number one, the phone call probably doesn't get made, and number two, if the car is operable, she's last seen what? Driving across state line looking for a new life. Right? Because what happens if you call John with a problem? John goes ballistic. So John ends up being deprived of information that John needs to run his organization. And sooner or later, physics or whomever else, what happens? Boom. Underreact, and you will be beloved. And then the last one is just the gospel according to St. Nike. If you work for me and it's in your area of responsibility, just do it. If you need my help, give me a holler. But I want you taking ownership of your role. I want you taking pride in your job. I want to develop you as much as I possibly can. And we're going to cook around here. So this is what it feels like to work for me. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you a big question. Think about it, but don't answer it. And then I'm going to ask you 3 smaller questions, which you'll answer at the time, and then we'll get back to the big question. Fair enough? This is not on the outline. Big question. Would you like to work for me or not? Don't answer. Let's get to the smaller ones first. Number 1, when you work for me, are you going to have more or less responsibility than you have had in the past? What do you think? More. I absolutely guarantee you that when you work for me, you're going to have a lot more responsibility for your job and your role in this organization, decision making, all of those kinds of things. You're going to have a lot more responsibility than you've had in the past. Number 2, when you work for me, are you going to have more or less authority than you've had in the past? What do you think? More. Much, much more. Those two have to go together. If you have all the authority in the world and no responsibility, what are you? You're a tyrant. Conversely, if you have all the responsibility in the world and no authority, you're in trouble. Those two have to go together. When I took over one of these organizations, the chief of maintenance, they had $250 million worth of airplanes sitting out there, and the chief of maintenance signature authority to get a bill paid was $5,000. The valve in the toilet on one of those airplanes was $20-some thousand. And the chief of maintenance authority was $5,000. So I went to the, speak of control, I went to the people who keep the authority roster and I said, this has got to change. And they said, well, it's currently $5,000. What do you think it should be? And I said, $500,000. And they said, okay. So overnight, the chief of maintenance went from $5,000 to $500,000. And part of your job being in charge of an organization is make sure that authority and responsibility go hand in hand. If I'm going to hold you responsible for something, I got to give you the authority to get your job done. Then lastly, if you work for me, when you work for me, are you going to work harder or less hard than you have in the past? Harder. I promise you. That's why we're here, is to work on behalf of this bigger organization. So let's get back to this first, we're going to work hard, play hard, what have you. But let's get back to the big question. You're going to have more responsibility, you're going to have more authority, and you're going to work harder. Now answer, show of hands, how many of you would like to work for me? Anybody? Have you lost your minds? Harder work, more responsibility, more authority. And the question is, why would you ever want to work for me? And my answer to that is because you're good people. Every place I've gone, and when my phone rings, generally there's weak or bad management, but they're wonderful people. And they flourish in this kind of an environment. Everybody with me? Thank you for your attention, and we can